Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, and my guest this week is somebody who I'm really excited to talk to, Cash Borden. I have been aware of Cash Borden for quite a while. I saw him, some clips of him wrestling friends of mine for quite some time. I made a few long road trips to Albany, Illinois to see him wrestle, and now really happy to see him making quite the name for himself in the independent wrestling scene in this area. So, Cash, thank you very much for being on the show.
No problem, brother. Thank you for having me.
Uh, so, my first question is the standard question: were you a wrestling fan as a kid, and what sort of wrestlers did you like growing up? What got you into pro wrestling? What made you fall in love with this art form?
Okay, so I actually just me and my dad were talking the other day, and this just came to me, and I don't see how I haven't thought of it in 15 years. Growing up, my dad was the biggest professional wrestling fan. Pro Wrestling Illustrated would be all over my house.
Right.
I would have like VHS tapes of just the most random televised matches that have ever happened, and it would be okay, a lot of Chief Jay Strongbow,
Okay.
and I think there was some of the early deathmatch stuff with like Terry Funk and Cactus Jack on a lot
Wow.
of the VHSs. But I remember my dad would tell me back then, Abdallah would be on there with his spike and his fork, and he would tell me, "Yeah, that guy's cutting people with razor blades." So my whole life growing up, man, I always thought it was like Abdullah had my mom's like leg razor taped up and he's just stabbing people in the head with it. But that's actually like some of my earliest memories of wrestling was those VHS tapes, which explains a lot now in my wrestling career.
I was gonna say, so from an early age, you kind of have the reputation as a deathmatch wrestler. So from an early age, were you drawn to the deathmatch stuff through Terry Funk and Abdullah, or were there some more uh, quote unquote traditional wrestlers, that you also were drawn to, or
Well, I think it was just because my dad had like painted this image of them in my head of them being actual madmen. Um,
gotcha?
I can even remember playing with like my action figures when I was little. I'd have like Batman, and then I would have say a Coco Beware figure as the bad guy. Like they they automatically just stood out to me as like bad, menacing people.
Right.
Um, as I got older and grew up more, the first show that I ever went to, I think, was in Sandoval, Illinois, and Terry Funk was on it.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, I can't remember who he worked that night, but they actually came into the crowd. I remember my dad showing me a picture of me and Terry Funk, and I'm crying standing next to him. He said
Oh,
as soon as they got out into the crowd, it was right next to us, and it just scared the shit out of me, and I took off running. But after that, like another one of the first big shows I went to when I was younger, my dad took me to see Hell in a Cell, Bad Blood in St. Louis. I think it was
oh, wow.
'97.
Yes.
So Undertaker and Shawn, that was like the first big wrestling show I went to, and I was hooked from there. I remember I got a Stone Cold T-shirt, and I was so pissed that I couldn't trade it for a Shawn Michaels shirt.
Finally, I get a Sean fan on here. Everybody who I interview is
Like
always,
there was
Bret Hart was my guy. Bret Hart was my guy, and I'm a Sean fan. So you have no idea how happy I am to finally get a Sean fan on the show.
Man, from that moment on, Shawn was like my favorite wrestler growing up. It was actually probably a couple weeks leading up to the Hell in a Cell, is when I really started to like pay attention to what was happening on Raw at the time around then. Um, Another big feud that I was like dying to see there that night, and it was even after the cell was raised up, I was still sitting there like we haven't got to see Dude Love and Brian Pillman's match, or
Yeah.
not Dude Love, but it was Gold Dust, I think.
No, I think it was. Don't
Was it
quote me
Dude
on
Love?
this. I'll have to fact check myself later. But I think it was supposed to be Dude Love, like with Gold Dust or something.
It was something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember even telling my dad because they didn't announce in the arena that
Really?
had happened with Pillman. Yeah, it was just on TV, I guess.
Okay, because I remember watching watching on TV Vince McMahon saying it like at the commentator's booth. But okay, I never knew they never
Yeah, they didn't
announced
let
that
nobody in there know about it.
because I mean, unfortunately, 2 years later in Kansas City, when Owen Hart tragedy occurred, like they kind of made an announcement, about at least people kind of knew what happened with Owen, but they
Yeah,
just kept everybody in the dark about Pillman. That's nuts.
yeah, they sure did, man. That was it was crazy.
Um,
But yeah, I remember doing so much research leading up because like I was more of a WCW guy
right.
when I was little. Um,
Uh, but what drew you to
just
WCW at that time over the WWF?
yeah, I think it was just because my grandfather and my dad, that was what all their guys were on, and that's what they just most consistently watched was WCW.
So, as far as wrestlers that you got into, so there was Sean. You mentioned Abdullah, Terry Funk. Anybody else you want to
Um,
mention being real
after
big fans of?
after that Bad Blood show, man, I was WWF all the way. Like growing up from there, man, it was Sean was my idol, and then he got hurt and was out, and then it's kind of weird, but like Road Dogg became my new guy that I loved.
Nice, nice. Oh yeah, I
So, yeah.
everybody did. I guess that just shows like how much charisma he had. That you can go from liking, my opinion, the greatest in-ring performer of all time to like immediately your guy being somebody who's one of the best on the microphone of all time. I think that's pretty cool.
Right, yeah, and then like another thing, when I was younger, I would go out and wrestle on the trampoline, with like my wrestling buddies, and
Right.
a lot of the matches I would recreate would be like Sean versus Jeff Jarrett with the roadie out there as his
Nice.
bodyguard, like I don't know, I guess it's, and I hate Jeff Jarrett still to this day, like I can't stand watching any of his matches, but when I was young, I would role play him in Sean's matches all the time, and I think that just shows like how much of a good worker Jeff was that I still do not like him to this day.
um. So I always ask all my wrestling guests if they had like a performance or an athletic background growing up that helped them along with the eventual decision to become a pro wrestler. Did you play any sports? Did you do any performances through music or uh, theater or anything like that?
The town that I grew up in, man, it's real small. There's probably 1,000 people that live in it. Not
Really?
even that. Maybe like 1,500. But we didn't have a football team. We had a baseball team and we had a basketball team. Um, I played in my early grade school days leading up, but after that, no, I didn't do any sports, no theater or anything like that. We didn't really have it at my school.
That's so. What made you decide that professional wrestling was something you'd want to pursue, and how did you go about finding a trainer or finding a school? What was that process like for you?
Well, the night in '97 at Bad Blood, I told my dad when we left that night that I wanted to be just like Shawn Michaels because of the way like everybody loved him when he entered into that cell, and when he left that cell that night, everyone hated him. They were throwing trash at him. I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. But I told my dad I was like I'm gonna beat him one of these days, and I mean really from there it was just uh, we would always talk about it. Me and my friends, we'd always, like I said, we actually had like little trampoline feds. We'd pop up at each other's house every day after school. We'd have like one over at my buddy's house on the north side of town, and that would be like our SmackDown. And then on the south side of town would be like Raw.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, it was just, I knew I wanted to be a wrestler. I finally graduated high school in 2006. I started looking around for schools at the time. I believe like Harley Race's school was like the only big notable school around me, and it cost you an arm and a leg to get in there, and
right.
I definitely did not have the arm and the leg to spare. So I kept searching around, and then finally one of the one of my buddies that I who would do the trampoline feds with me, he found a school in Paris, Illinois,
Okay.
ran by a guy named Gary Jennings. He wrestled under the name Ice Cold Outlaw. It was for a promotion called NCW or NWC.
Okay.
What? one of the two. There was two promotions at the time. There was NCW and NWC. It was like the only things around here. Um, so we get in with them. We start going up there to train. Harris, Illinois was 2.5 hours from where I live. So every Sunday we would meet up at like 9 in the morning, and three of us would drive over there in this little cramped car all the way to Paris, and we'd hit our training every day. Um, some of the guys that was in the training with me when we first started out was Christian Rose, Blake
Oh
Reed, Alex
wow.
Castle.
Oh wow,
Um,
that's some. I'm very
yeah,
aware of Christian Rosenau's Castle. The other gentleman, unfortunately, I'm not quite as familiar with. That's still pretty cool.
yeah. I mean, it was cool because all of us at the time, and like Ring of Honor was just starting to be like a big thing that people knew about because
Right,
we've all been raised on WCW, WWF, and then WWF bought WCW, and then it just all kind of went to WWE.
right,
So like uh, we all knew of ECW. Of course, we followed that growing up. But
right.
whenever Ring of Honor popped back up, it was almost like, holy shit, this is another ECW right here. And we were all huge marks of Ring of Honor. So like we'd go up there, we'd train every week, and then we'd probably spend a good hour after training just talking about Ring of Honor and what was going on with that, and planning to go to shows that were around us.
Um, it's funny you mentioned Ring of Honor because that was something that the glory days of Ring of Honor, like you mentioned, were something that really grabbed my attention as a fan. Um, what grabbed your attention about what wrestlers really grabbed your attention in Ring of Honor when you were training to be a wrestler, and how did you kind of see while you were training? How did you look at wrestling differently than you were as a fan?
Well, that's the thing that a lot of people can't differential nowadays when they're becoming from a fan to a wrestler. Um, and I mean, it's hard to like call people out on this because it's in every promotion in every town, every state, everywhere. You got you got somebody who's still not totally got the knowledge and grasp on being a wrestler yet, so they're still a fan and they go out there and they try to do all kinds of crazy stuff that they know they can't do.
Right,
Um, I feel like back when Ring of Honor was coming up, that kind of helped break that for me because I would see like okay, like Brian Danielson, he was one of my favorite wrestlers at the time.
right,
Um, just because like everything he did, like it would be flashy stuff at all, but it would get the crowd going and it looked believable and it meant something when he did it. Nigel McGuinness was another guy at that time doing stuff like that.
absolutely.
Um,
You just mentioned probably my two favorites from Ring of Honor as well.
and then like low key at that time was just killing shit. But he was the guy that could go out there and do 100 cartwheels and then hit you with an enziguri to the head and it looked decent.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I feel like at that time, if Ring of Honor hadn't have been there, I would have still just been looking for influences, from the WWE, and I definitely wouldn't have a mindset for wrestling like I do now.
Awesome. So you mentioned, you're driving, 2 3 hours for training. When what was the training like, and when did you have your first match and memories from your first match?
The training, the first, I'd say probably 3 4 weeks was horrid. Like, I'd wake up the next day and it would just feel like the worst hangover I've ever had in my life. My whole body, my whole body would just kill me. Like me and Tylenol became best friends there in that first couple months. Um, I believe I only trained, I think, for 5 months, and then we had a show in my hometown, and something happened with one of the workers, and they needed somebody to take a spot, and they were like, I know you haven't been training very long, but I feel comfortable with you running this match if you want to do it. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, of course I will. And it was actually me and Christian Rose
Awesome.
in my hometown. And another thing that was cool about that was, whenever you're growing up in high school and they ask you, what you want to be when you grow up, I would always tell them I wanted to be a professional wrestler. Everybody would laugh. You had teachers that would criticize you about that.
Right.
Well, that night that they had that show in my hometown, all those teachers that criticized me had to be the chaperones for that show.
Nice.
So whenever I was walking out, Like I couldn't contain the smile on my face just because I kept looking at them going, I told you so.
Right.
So I mean, it was really a dope feeling, and the match was good. Like there was no hiccups in it at all, and it was surprising to everyone because it was my first match, and just the reactions from it all, that it all got over really well. Like it's amazing to have a good match like that, especially at that era starting out, because nobody ever really did.
That's that's pretty cool. What was the promotion that you were? You said it was NWC or
I believe I think it's NCW, and then the one that was over here in Noble was NWC.
gotcha. So from there, what were the promotions that really you kind of learned to grow as a wrestler? Was it that one, or when did you really start branching out to kind of come a little further south to come to eventually where I first started hearing about you in Anna, Illinois?
I wrestled all over the place. I would hit St. Louis every now and then, and I did a couple IWA Mid South shows after I started.
Well, tell us about IWA Mid South because I know it's kind of a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on IWA Mid South. Some people, see it for the innovation that it had and the platform it gave to a lot of people that are now legends in the wrestling business, and then a lot of people also kind of see kind of the dark side of IWA Mid South. What was it like working for IWA Mid South, and was this when Ian was running it, or
Yes, yes. Actually, I've seen both the good and the bad sides of Mid South. Because, like I said, when I first started there was no way that they were going to let some green boy just come in and have a match.
right?
So to get my foot in the door at Mid South, I had to pay money to be on a tryout.
Okay,
And um, really, the way these tryout shows, I mean, back then, I don't think that they're too much that way now. Back then, it was just a way for that company to make money.
right.
Like everybody pays so much money to get on this tryout show, and then you're judged by Mickey Knuckles, Jimmy Jacobs, Ian Rotten, and a lot of guys. I mean, especially if they went in there with that mindset of, well, I'm going to do this cartwheel and then this enziguri, they just got picked apart, at these tryout shows. Um, the show that I did actually didn't get picked apart. I did get picked apart on what I was wearing by
Right.
Jimmy Jacobs. But really, I mean, it really just helped me because at the time I'm wearing like baggy pleather shorts and whatever cash T-shirt I had at the moment. Um, but yeah, really, like he gave me a lot of influence on how I needed to um, get not necessarily a gimmick, but a look together for what I was trying to portray.
Uh, so how did you use Jimmy Jacobs' advice? What did you change up about your presentation after that?
After that, actually, because at the time I was doing like a almost like a Malibu's Most Wanted gimmick. Um, so I actually just started purchasing like Reebok jumpsuits and stuff like that, and then I would wear my wrestling shoes and kick pads with that stuff.
Okay.
Um, and then it was really like at that time too, man. If you wore street clothes in the ring, you were just looked down upon so hard. But I was trying to take the knowledge that Jimmy gave me about portraying the character that I wanted to be to look like that when I wrestled. So like really wearing the street clothes around that time got me not booked at a lot of places. So I think there's a good stretch where like probably 2, 3 years where I don't really wrestle anywhere
Right.
uh, after the Mid South tryouts. But yeah, like okay, so nowadays working for Mid South is awesome. But back then it was just kind of like, man, I'm driving all the way over here, I'm paying this money to get on the show, and then I'm pretty much just paying for them to fucking make me look stupid in front of everyone. So I kind of just left Mid South there for a while. I started wrestling down in Metropolis for a place called RPW,
Okay.
and there was another place down there called CPW I wrestled for as well. And I think really in those 2 or 3 years where I didn't hit up a lot of people, I just stayed in Metropolis and wrestled at only those two spots. Um, and then I ran into Tracy Smothers down there at RPW.
Okay.
and he actually like helped my whole career. He helped me get a grasp on how psychology is in wrestling. He helped me get a grasp on what it is that people don't understand about the psychology. Um, my character, he was like, listen, man, you don't go pay money to be put on a show. This is how you get booked. He picked up a cell phone and he called. I don't know if it was like somebody at Psychopathic or if it was actually Violent J, but he got me and Cole James booked on JCW that weekend. He's like, this is how you get people booked, man. You don't pay for it. It's all word
Nice.
of mouth. So
Um,
like,
it's funny you mentioned that because, well, first thing I want to ask you about is what are your memories of RPW and CPW? Because that's kind of where I was seeing through videos you for the first time, you and Zach, and the stuff that you were doing. But I also know a lot of talent kind of came through that area for a little while. Chuck Taylor, Ricochet, we're
yeah.
wrestling in Metropolis, Illinois, quite a bit. What are your memories of just being around those sort of guys and the stuff you were doing in those promotions?
Um, man, back then, I mean, at the time, like we all knew Ricochet was going to be something just because the way he moved and acted in the ring, man, he had it, everything about it. um, but yeah, I worked Ricochet down there. I worked Chuck Taylor down there. Um, there's going to be a lot of guys I forget, but they're very notable to mention. Uh, but yeah, I mean, really like working with Chuck and Ricochet back then, it was a lot like locker rooms are nowadays, really. The way they handled themselves, the way they strive to be better than everyone else around them.
Awesome. Um, so the first time I ever saw you personally, you were doing a storyline with Zach Sawyer, and Dalton Diamond was a referee, and you were beating up Dalton Diamond, and Zach come out and led to this whole storyline with you. I believe that was in RPW.
Yeah.
Memories of just that whole storyline and what you were doing with Zach at the time.
Um, what was it? Okay, so like I get down there in Metropolis. I'm working there constantly, and then like the thing about RPW was like not all of the workers, or actually none of the workers had a grasp for how a match should be ran. Really, like they're all going out there trying to do 100 backflips and all kinds of crazy shit to get the pop from the crowd, which would have been like what 5, 10 people in the crowd. But so me, Zach, and Dalton, we start working with each other regularly. Dalton is actually just transitioning from being a fan to
Right.
getting in the ring at this time. Zach tells me that Dalton is a stepbrother. So that leads to, I think it was Dalton refereeing a match between Zach and someone, and I come out there and beat the hell out of Dalton to get Zach's attention. Uh, Me and Zach, I think, had this feud for a good half year that led
Right.
to a dog collar match down there. And see, like I said, we were all just starting out at the time, so we are legit beating the shit out of each other every week up there. Like no punches pulled, just so that it looks good to everyone. But yeah, that all culminated into the dog collar match between me and Zach, which at that time that was one of my favorite matches I had ever done, just because of all the gimmicks. And I think at the beginning of the feud, I stole Zach's shoes off of his feet, knocked him out, and stole his shoes. So at the end of the feud, Zach beat me in the dog collar match and stole my shoes back from me, or his shoes
Nice.
back from me.
That's pretty
So
cool.
yeah, that was pretty cool.
um, so you mentioned Tracy Smothers earlier, and I know a while back we had Shane Rich on here, and he had some good stories about Tracy. Unfortunately, Tracy's no longer with us. You mentioned how he got you booked at with JCW, and I'm going to ask you about JCW, but do you have any other Tracy stories you'd like to share? Because it's always great to talk about Tracy.
Oh man, there's numerous ones. Tracy was probably in, I'd say, 80% of the locker rooms from 2006 to 2000 and hell 16 that I was in. So there's tons of stories I have of Tracy. Um, a lot of them probably don't need to be brought up on here.
That's fair. That's fair.
But like
Um,
I said, man, Tracy gave me that legit real push to get my foot in the door somewhere, and I will always be grateful to that man for that.
awesome. Awesome. Um, so, mentioned JCW. Again, kind of in the similar vein to IWA Mid South, the Insane Clown Posse. Very controversial figures in not even just the wrestling world, in the world. Um, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on the ICP. What was it like? What was your experience like working for them for their promotion?
It was amazing, dude. That was like my first taste of, I guess, fame as a wrestler.
Okay.
That night or that day, the show was actually outside at Insage at Pops. Um, they
Okay.
didn't they didn't want the soda and everything to damage the inside.
That makes sense for Pops, yes.
So they're coming straight from, I believe it was the Gathering, and their first big show was at Sage there at Pops in St. Louis. And let me see here. To start off the night, it was the JCW show, and then it led into, I'm pretty sure it was like Coolio played right after us,
Okay.
and then it led into like Cottonmouth Kings and the band Kitty,
Gotcha.
and then ended with ICP. Uh, but we walk in there. First off, we get to the gate. Nobody will let us in because we don't have passes. So me and Cole James probably stand out there for a good hour, and then Tracy arrives. Tracy's like, "Hey boys, good to see you here. I'm glad you made it." He's like, "Why aren't you guys backstage yet?" And we're like, "They won't let us in the gates." And he's like, "Really?" So Tracy grabs both of our bags, walks over there to the security guard, and tells the security guard the exact same thing that we just said to him, but it just carried more weight coming from Tracy. The security guard opened the gates and let us in right then. And then Tracy Smothers actually, Cole James's mom drove us to that show, and she was stuck out there in the parking lot. So Tracy Smothers actually went out there, grabbed his bag from his vehicle, and was like, "All right, we're gonna do some human smuggling right now," and had Cole James' mom get in the back of the van, and he snuck her into the venue so
That's
that way we were
awesome.
all in there together. Yeah,
That's awesome.
it was crazy.
Um, what all interaction did you have with the ICP personally, and what are they like to work as individuals? Because again, I know they have a loyal fan base, and I'm not knocking the Juggalos in any conceivable way, but
Right,
I've also heard
absolutely.
some stories on the bad side of things about the ICP and working for the ICP. But what was your individual experience with dealing with them?
Well, see, the all three times that I've worked for ICP, I've never met them.
Really? Okay.
Not one, not once. They usually have somebody that puts the shows together for them. I
Okay.
believe that first go round, it was the Tomaselli brothers that were
Okay.
running things.
Okay.
Um,
Well, what I used to watch the Tomaselli brothers on DVDs from CZW and IWA Mid South. What are they like?
they're awesome, man. Like they look so brutal and menacing when they're in the ring together, but like everything is just that's really what taught me like, hey, I can do all these moves and not kill this person at all. That night I think I wrestled both of them. It was for the JCW tag titles. The finish of the match I believe was like a it was a backpack or a backcracker power bomb. So like the dude giving the power bomb jumps in the air and gives you a lung blower as well on the way down.
Okay.
But I mean, it was just the most brutal looking thing, but it was nothing. Like I remember that just standing out to me. And then also after that match that night, the Tomasellis, I had told them about the tryout that I had for Mid South and how I kind of just thought that was a joke. And they legit called Ian and got me booked that weekend for Mid South from there on out.
Um, did you become a regular at what year was the JCW show? Just so I can get kind of a time frame.
I'm thinking it was 2010.
Okay,
It was called the Happy Days Tour.
okay. Um, so were you a regular? Because 2010's kind of unfortunate when I kind of fell out of the super duper independent scene, and my bills to Smart Mark Video kind of dried up a little bit. But
Right.
um, how did you work pretty frequently for IWA Mid South at that point, or more
Yeah,
than
I
just the
probably
tryout
did.
matches?
Yeah, more than tryout matches. I did probably 6 shows for Mid South at that time, and they at this time it wasn't like they were having the weekly shows or nothing. These were the shows that they were selling on Smart Mark. So it would have been like the Summer Sizzler, and then I can't think of any other names right at the moment. But they were still decently good book shows. Like Jimmy Jacobs were on them. Um, I believe Moxley's on a couple of them.
Okay, awesome.
Neil Diamond Cutter was on them. I'm
Um,
trying to think of some of the guys around that time that were there. Actually, Christian Rose just starts wrestling for them around that time as well. Christian Rose, Matt Cage.
those are two names I'm definitely in the word association going to ask you about because they're two of my favorites that wrestled in the area for the numerous promotions around here. Um, but the one thing I did want to get into was you wrestled in Alney for I believe that was IWA Unlimited, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What led you to wrestling in that promotion? And because I remember my first IWA Unlimited show was just literally me sitting at home and my friend saying, "Hey, in Alney, Illinois, they have a show, and ACH is on the show, and Matt Cage is on the show, and Christian Rose is on the show, and let's go." So we just like on a whim drove the 2 hours to Alney, Illinois, watched the show, and you were the champion on that show. And I remember seeing him like, oh, that's the guy that is having the matches with Zach. So the first time I ever got to see you wrestle in person was at IWA Unlimited. I can't remember the name of the tournament, but it was a big tournament show with a lot of different names on the show. Uh, what was it like working for that promotion? Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Um, I still love working for IWAU right now, but back then, I feel like that company was the hottest they were ever going to be. And I don't know if it's because of the platforms like SmartMark that we're using. I mean, most likely, yes. But they were getting talked about. I mean, even if you go through YouTube and you scroll through those matches, man, they're up in thousands on the views compared to like nowadays stuff that you look at.
Right.
But like, yeah, the way I got there was really similar to the way that you went to the show. I was with my fiance at Applebee's, and one of my buddies, it was Cole James. He called me and he's like, "Hey, there's a show in Albany, and they got all these guys on there, and it actually looks like it'd be worth doing, and it's weekly." So he's like, "Do you want to go down there tonight?" And I was like, "Oh hell yeah, well let's go." So we go down there. I don't believe we were used on the first show, but then like after I got down there and met a lot of the guys, like I had trained with Christian Rose, so he already knew who I was. So I had a good name, I had a good foot in the door. And then I think it was the next week, me and Cole was starting to get used down there regularly.
Awesome. Is this in
Um,
2010 as well, or?
yes, I believe this is 2010 into 2011.
Okay. I know that
So
the show where I first saw you was 2012 because I remember. I'm not gonna get too personal, but I remember just where I was at in my life. It's like, okay, this is 2012. Uh, but yeah, I did really enjoy seeing you on that show, and I'm like, oh, that's cool that one of the guys from this Metropolis group that Zach and Dalton kept showing me is seems to be getting around. So I was happy to kind of see that after watching you and Zach in those videos that Zach used to send me on MySpace.
right, yeah, we're just beating the hell out of each other for no reason.
um, so when I went to message you, I saw on your profile that you worked for Kaiju Big Battle, and I was
Yep.
unaware of this. So, tell me a little about your time in Kaiju Big Battle and what you did there.
That was actually through the JCW where I
Okay,
worked for Kaiju. Um, it was, I believe it was the first gathering outside of Cave in Rock. It was the one in Iowa.
okay.
Um, it was actually me, Frank Wyatt, Dalton Diamond, Mikey McFinnigan, Bull Bronson. We all traveled down there and did Kaiju Big Battle that night. Um, that night I wrestled as Unibuzu. He's a sea urchin.
Nice.
And then I actually wrestled a tag match as one of the plantains. It's just like this green, like a leaf pea. I don't even know what the hell.
Um,
But that Kaiju Big Battle, dude, it's like it's a huge mind fuck because you got to walk down this narrow ass stage, this ramp to the ring. You can't see nothing with your peripheral vision at all. There's like lights and fireworks going off. You have a city that's built in the ring that you're destroying while you're wrestling your match because it's two monsters fighting in a city is what
right.
it's portrayed.
My
But
big my biggest regret is I went to WrestleMania in 2019, and my biggest regret is just with the way like the city buses were running and the public transportation and where I was staying compared to where the show was. I'm so upset that I did not get to see. I think Kaiju Big Battle was like right after NXT Takeover, and I didn't get to. I had to choose Kaiju or NXT, and unfortunately, or fortunately,
right,
depending on your perspective, I chose NXT. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I was getting
But
ready to
yeah, I
ask,
mean
what's it like wrestling in a costume like that?
it's amazing and like I said, the hugest mind fuck at the same time because you cannot see nothing and you can't breathe at all. So like I remember the couple times when I was Unibuzu, I had this huge round circular costume that was red and it had all these yellow sea urchin legs coming off of it. Then you wear these big, they're like mittens, but they cover your whole arms on both sides. Your helmet is like a sword fighting fencing helmet, but then it has all the plaster and latex over it of your mask. So you have that buckled down to your head. I mean, you're just stuck in this suit. So if you're out there trying to breathe and you can't get no breath, you like are struggling just to get your lips underneath that mask, just to take a breath. So I mean, it really fucks with your mind. Like you're laying there, like I might die in this suit right now, and no one's gonna know. The first match I had that night, I wrestled. It was Mikey McFinnigan. He was the Dusto Bunny. So he's this huge, giant, dusty bunny that has all this baby powder just puffing off of him.
Oh
So
wow.
anytime I got like hit with a crossbody or anything like that, like I'm blinded from the powder, but I can't breathe already. But I mean, it was one of the coolest matches I've did, but it was also one of the most scariest matches I've done.
um, so in this area, one of the promotions that you definitely really making a name for yourself in is Stride Pro Wrestling, and I've had Heath Hatton on here a couple times. Great guy, great interviews. But to me, I want to ask you about your time in Stride, and one of the other things I think is really interesting about your time in Stride is you have quite a different character than the audience in Stride is used to. So tell me about how you got started in Stride and also how you were able to adjust your presentation for the audience of Stride.
Okay, so with Stride, it was actually Dalton Diamond messaged me and he's like, we're doing the Boys in the Hood gimmick at the time. Um, I believe we're just wrestling at like maybe IWAU every now and then and Strictly Insane Pro Wrestling. He messages me and he's like, hey, the some of the guys that used to run ICAW have gotten together and they're trying to do this show called Stride. Well, I find out that it's all Heath Hatton show once we get there. But like I don't know, they're like when it comes to family shows like that, I don't even really think about trying to transition out of the character I am because I feel like most of the people that are going to cheer or boo me already have an idea of who I am.
Right.
So what I do is like I just turn the volume down on like the violence side of it.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, I mean, Stride, like we had known all the guys that were there. Um, we could trust everybody, so that's a big thing you look for in a company. Um, but yeah, starting out there in Stride, we started out at I think it was the mall there in Marion,
Right.
and it was a lot of me and Dalton tagged up as the boys in the hood versus one big match that stands out. I think it was like Madman Pondo and Bull, and then
Yeah.
another one is Bob Orton and Bull that we wrestled.
Awesome.
But then I think after that is slowly whenever the boys in the hood start to break up.
Um, Memories of working with Bob Orton.
Bob was awesome. That wasn't the first time I'd worked with him. I worked with him in Metropolis as well at
Okay.
RPW. Um, so yeah, that was one of the names I forgot earlier.
I,
I actually worked with Jerry Lynn down there too.
okay.
Uh,
I'm a huge Jerry Lynn fan, so I got to ask you about Jerry Lynn.
Jerry Lynn, dude, he was the Ring of Honor champion at the time. Like just
N-
became the Ring of Honor champion.
Nice.
So, like I'm already marking out. The guy that runs the show down there is Tojo Yamamoto Jr.
Right.
And this motherfucker goes up to Jerry Lynn and he tells him Cash doesn't want to make it anywhere in wrestling besides to Ring of Honor. And Jerry's like, "Oh yeah, so he thinks he can go, huh?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I've been preparing for it my whole career, so yeah, we'll see, I guess tonight." So me and Jerry go through this match, man, and it's like, um, it's finally the first time I see how a match should be put together with a lot of high spots.
Right.
Like Jerry actually writes down every move you will make on a piece of paper.
Really?
Yeah, like as he's writing down this match, I can see the little paragraphs above it have the name Roddy wrote. So I'm assuming this is a match with Roderick Strong and him that they had just had previously. That he's writing my match on the back of this piece of paper with.
That's awesome.
But yeah, dude, it was so nerve wracking. We get out there, we do everything. That was the first time that I felt like I was gonna have a panic attack in the ring. Like I remember thinking in the last 15 minutes of that match, fuck, just power drive me, pin me, power drive me, pin me. But yeah, I mean, he did damn near every flashy move that he has in that match. And then like that was the first night I took a Frankensteiner. First night I gave a Frankensteiner.
Nice.
Um, I actually, and this is horrible. I picked Jerry up off the ground and kick him straight in his forehead.
Ooh.
He says, "Oh fuck," falls down and hits the ground. So in my mind, I'm like, all right, jump on him, beat the fuck out of him because he's gonna kill you. No, don't do that. He's Jerry fucking Lynn. So I slowly pin him like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. He kicks out. He never stiffs me or gives me a receipt in this match. He just outdoes me with every move he does.
So would
We get
you
undefeated.
this is with all due respect to everybody else in the wrestling business, but the reputation and even a joke they use on being the elite is Jerry Lynn is the nicest guy in wrestling. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Oh yeah, for sure. But in my head at the time, man, I kicked him in the head. He's falling down, going fuck, and I'm like, shit, he's gonna kill you.
um, so when we talk about Stride, you've really, especially in Stride, you've become one of the key players there. You mentioned you and Dalton kind of were coming to the end of your run as a tag team. What kind of led to you sort of becoming more of a top guy and the top heel in Stride Pro Wrestling, or one of the top heels?
Really, I think that was it. Was me and Dalton split up, and they kind of had me going as the baby face. Um, so me and Dalton split. Um, I don't think we ever even had a match after that. I think something happened with Dalton and Stride to where Dalton was no longer working there anymore. So from there, it led me turning into a heel. And I believe the what it was like they started shooting guys at me like Tony Flood, Jay Spade, and what it was is I started cutting these promos, and I actually learned this technique from Prince of the Death whenever I worked that for IWA Mid South. They wanted a promo telling why I was coming to Prince of the Death and why I was going to be the Prince at the end of it. I started doing these promos to where it was like very Joker like, I
Okay.
guess you would say, where I'm holding the camera close to my face, the camera's moving all the time. You got the time and date, but I would always do them in like weird dark corners and stuff like that. And anytime I would do these promos, like I would always talk with the guy beforehand because I would try to point out things that I would see them going through in real life. So, like if they're struggling with their a marriage or jobs, I would throw little digs of stuff like that in the promos. And I feel like that's kind of just what took me off as being a hill in stride.
Um, and the one thing I definitely want to ask you about from Stride is the segment that you did where you essentially just waltzed into Heath Hatton's house and were just kind of like obnoxiously eating his food and trying to work out
Yeah,
with him. Like I shouldn't have been like I mean like I kind of thought one it was it's very innovative for like a promotion from this area to do something like that because like that's like honest to God pretty horrifying to have somebody just jump in your house and
right.
start
We
fucking with you.
actually,
But I'm laughing because I'm like, here's this obnoxious douchebag going into Heath Hatton's house and like eating his chips and shit, and
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
this is
um,
funny, but it
that,
shouldn't be. But it's still damn good.
that's still actually not done. We got part two of that coming out here pretty soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
So,
what
but
was
yeah, the story with between me and Heath right now is pretty badass.
Yeah. What was it like filming something like that? I mean, I've had Heath on the show, and he's kind of explaining, he's open minded. He's a really smart guy, especially with all the things he's been able to do with a promotion like that in this area. But I didn't really ever expect, something like that to involve like because
Right.
Southern Illinois
And,
is still very I don't know what like
and
close
see,
together. It's really weird to see that in an area like this.
and that goes back to like me still transitioning to be the top hill in stride. Like what we did with that was I cut this promo about Heath and how he's this wholesome cookie cutter dad and all this. Like there's a little bit of truth in each one of of those promos. Um, but that's what we're just kind of going off of that promo and where the story's taking us. And actually, the movie that inspires this promo is the movie 1 Hour Photo with Robin Williams.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a spot in that movie where he's obsessed with this uh, family that comes in and gets their photos developed, and he actually goes to their house when they're not home, and he'll put on the husband's clothes and just kind of act like him while he's in the house. So that's pretty much where we stole that promo from.
um. So, got definitely. I'll put a link to all that in the description box below. Definitely be checking out. Heath and Cash are doing some great things. Stride's doing some great things right now. With everything working against everything in wrestling, Stride's really done a great job. So definitely check out what they're doing. Um, Another promotion I wanted to ask you about real quick was Cape Championship Wrestling out of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. What are your, how'd you get started there? And I know they've used you quite well, or uh, what's Cape Championship Wrestling like?
So Cape is probably besides JCW and FIP is one of the most organized promotions I've ever worked for. Like you have to have a license to wrestle there. You have to have a physical blood test, which really I feel like in this day and age, any promotion around here should have that because that weeds out who is an actual wrestler and who's just coming from the street. straight
Right.
from the trampoline. You don't really have too many of those kids anymore nowadays, coming straight from the backyard to wrestle. But
Right.
it still helps weed out who was going to put in the work to get all this stuff taken care of, and be on the show.
Um, so how would you describe that as a promotion? Because I've only seen one Cape Championship Wrestling show live. How would you describe Cape Championship Wrestling as far as like if someone from out of town were to want to check this promotion out?
Visually wise, man, Cape looks like they're just top notch all around. There's a I've noticed here lately there's a lot of workers that need work, but whenever I first started coming, there was like everybody in that locker room just made me want to be a better wrestler. Um, because leading up to coming to Cape, you can only be the brightest star for so long in one area
Right.
before you need to move on and try to be brighter than somebody else. And at Cape, man, it was just everyone I shook hands with and met was like, okay, I need to be better than this guy, this guy, this guy. That was really the first promotion I seen where I was like, oh shit, now I'm in trouble. Now I'm not going to be the guy that stands out on every show.
Awesome. So you'd say Cape really drove you to be better?
Yeah.
Awesome. You mentioned FIP, and I just wanted to ask you about working for FIP because it's kind of, with all due respect to it, it's kind of like it doesn't get the same attention it did, kind of back in the mid 2000s. What was it like working for FIP, and what is the promotion like?
So I went down there twice. The first time I went down there, I was just part of the ring crew trying to get on. The second time I went down there, I believe, was with, I think it was the Hooligans.
Okay.
FIP, I mean, it was pretty much like stepping foot in the Ring of Honor, It was everything that I had hoped for when I got there. Um, I haven't been back to FIP, so I don't know, if if it was
Right.
something I did on my part or what. But I kind of just took the booking with a carload of guys too. So
Who'd you wrestle for your for FIP?
I, I don't even know the guy's name, and I think his name was like Antonio. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of the dude's name.
Um,
Antonio London,
okay. Um,
maybe.
so the last promotion I wanted to really ask you about is probably the newest promotion, Anified Underground. It made its debut, and it's just a lot of respect to everybody running that for them to actually be able to hold the promotion's first show and with the situation the world's in. Um, what? How did Zach come to you about Anified Underground, and how did you and Dalton put together this whole story for your match leading into the debut show? Because Dalton and I have been friends for over 10 years, but I was actually really super intrigued by this match and the story where credit to Dalton, was actually not seeing my buddy. I was seeing Dalton Diamond trying, I was seeing a character and not my friend. That's,
Right.
I gotta give major props to how well that program was done. Take me through Fight Underground and this whole the journey to that and the story to that first show and your first match there.
So Fight Underground is something like, okay, did you ever hear of Outlaw Wrestling?
Like outlaw wrestling,
It was,
like Jim Cornette talks about, or like is there like a
no,
different out?
no, no. This was like the show around here that Devin and Mason, the Hooligans, would run.
I've never. I'm unfortunately not familiar with that. I'm sorry.
Okay. So Outlaw was kind of, or Fight Underground is kind of birthed from Outlaw. Outlaw was it was me, Mason, Devin, Bull, Zach, Mikey. I mean, everybody, all of us, big group of friends. We wanted to have a promotion that we could stand up with Ring of Honor and everything that was around at the time. So we built this promotion called Outlaw, and I think we ran 4 shows. The second show was in Centralia, Illinois, and it got raided by the cops at the end. I don't know if you heard about that.
No, I did not. Okay, there's a story there I got to ask about.
Okay, so it's a second Outlaw show. The main event is the Rejects versus the Hooligans. Um, the guy, the guy that owned the building, it was like this sports teenage center place in Centralia.
Okay.
Anyways, it's a hardcore match for the main event. They're using. I know that shit didn't hit the fan until they pulled out a 60-inch flat screen TV and they threw somebody through it, and then that promoter he jumped up on the ring apron trying to get the match stopped right then and there. The guy that owned the building did. He starts flipping out, saying that all the stuff we damaged was the building stuff, which it wasn't. It was all stuff that we had brought. Um, so he jumps up on the ring apron, calls the cops. The cops come in. They tried to shut down the show. We got the show shut down, and the ring tore down by the time the cops were entering the building. So I'd say 15 minutes is the fastest teardown anybody's ever seen. But even the front page of the newspaper the next day had, do you remember Uncle Leo, the manager for the Hooligans?
Most of my hooligans from St. Louis Anarchy, and I don't recall them using a manager very much there, unfortunately.
Okay, Leo was just this, he would wear like a hospital gown, and he resembles the Hooligans, but like a 60-year-old version of the
Okay.
Hooligans. So the picture of the newspaper the next day about this fucking show getting shut down has Uncle Leo uh, standing there in his hospital gown next to a van that's getting back. The trailer's getting backed up to the door, and you can see like me and a couple of the guys that worked on the show. We're all just like rushing the ring into the trailer, so the cops couldn't take it, or the dude that owned the building couldn't keep it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, crazy. Anyways, so Fight Underground kind of comes as a spawn from that. It's something that it's Zach and Dalton's promotion, but it's something that like we had been messaging each other about for years. Like, hey, if we ever did a promotion, let's do it like this, and we should do this, and we should do this. Um, the crazy thing is, whenever we're starting to like bite on it and do it, is whenever like ICW No Holds Bars is popping up. Um, Hell, they had Raw Underground there for a couple weeks in the
Right.
first week or so of us announcing Underground, but it was like everything that we had planned for years is like, oh shit, everybody else is jumping on it now. So the whole storyline between me and Dalton, that is all 100% Dalton and Zach. They came up with all of that because in the year or two leading up to Fight Underground, I'm like, okay, well, how is this even going to make sense for any of the people that don't know who me and Dalton are, you know? But
Right.
it's working.
Right.
It's working.
Um, what was what were your thoughts on the debut show that night at Quick Skating Rink? Well, how'd you feel the show went? How'd you feel that your match with where you teamed up with Mickey Knuckles against Dalton, Diamond, and Ty Blade? How'd you feel that that match went? Just take me through that night.
I feel like the show was pretty much flawless, besides the fact that New Jack didn't work his match. Um, that's like a whole nother story. Like, I'll just go ahead and say it, dude. Like, New Jack was one of my favorite wrestlers until that night. I
Oh,
have unfollowed him from all social media. I will never spend a dollar on New Jack again. That's for damn sure.
um, you don't have to go into any more detail that you don't want to, but feel free. Just what happened there, if you want to disclose. You don't have to if you don't want to.
Um, to me, this is the way that I view it. New Jack took the booking knowing that he wasn't 100%. I'm assuming he thought that he could do something that night, which I know just seeing him walk around the building, he wasn't in pain like he would say he was. He could have came out and did two or three things in a match and been fine. That's what everybody expected, you know. But yeah, he just totally didn't want to work with anybody on anything. So he took the money, he got there. and he just wanted to chill and drink. Is from my perspective.
Okay. I know. I was pretty excited to meet New Jack, and I did think New Jack was pretty cool to meet. But I remember when I saw him limping, I'm kind of like was having this. Oh, I don't know how I feel about seeing him wrestle with him limping like that. But
Right,
obviously,
and then like, and that's the thing too. Like, I don't want to come off and be like, well, the guy's hurt, and you still wanted to work. He knew, like, he didn't have to take the booking. Dalton had talked to him numerous times leading up to that. Jack would have known if he was going to be able to do anything or not. And then also the way that some of the guys tried to work this match out with him, he wouldn't have had to do a damn thing but stand there, and he still wasn't down with that at all. So, I mean, like I said, that's just my perspective on it. So he'll never get another dollar from me, that's for sure.
transitioning out of that portion, which a little disappointed to hear. I know Bull Bronson kind of mentioned that had some stuff about New Jack, and a lot of the other folks kind of mentioned had some stories about New Jack seeming a little out of it. But I'm disappointed to hear it was that bad from your perspective. Tell me
Right.
about
Yeah. I mean,
your
I still got respect for him, but it's just fan wise. No, I won't go out of my way to find his ECW figure or anything like that.
right. Um, okay, just tell me about your match because I was really intrigued. Again, not seeing a friend into this match, but seeing actually like a character. Uh, how do you feel that main event match worked? And I also want to say I do appreciate you at the very end using the DVD player that I brought for the fans bring the weapons. Nobody was using it, and I was getting upset. And then you threw it at Dalton at the very end. I'm like, thank you. You used the DVD player. Awesome.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of plunder around that I feel like didn't get used. I think I kept seeing this like Hitachi vibrator laying on the ground, but I don't know if it was like in my mind or what. But I feel like I seen it laying on the ground a couple times with like thumbtacks laying or wrapped around it.
I know
But yeah,
we bought some Halloween decoration stuff to use too, but like no, yeah, nothing. I was a little disappointed that some of the weapons didn't get used. But I had an old DVD player that no longer worked. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm like, fans bring the weapons. All right, I'll bring this DVD player. And I'm like, someone used the DVD player at the very end. You throw it at Dalton. I'm like, yes,
right, and
good
that
day.
totally would have been a good New Jack spot too. But anyways, but yeah, I mean, I think that whole show was pretty well went off flawless. Um, Even like Tony London and Riser, I know that match didn't get like a lot of feedback and stuff, but I mean, if they wanted to, they can build Riser now into being a freaking Crispin Wall.
Right.
Like, just because of the way he was out there acting and suplexing dude over and over and over. But I mean, I loved every match on the show, um, besides the New Jack Flaw.
And
Like,
I
to
will
me,
say like. I'm not knocking New Jack. I didn't work with him. He was a nice guy to me. Signed my stuff. Took a good picture. I didn't work with New Jack, so I'm you know not one to seem like I disliked him, but I will say it was really cool because I watched Bull in AAPW. So when I did get to see Bull come out, I'm like, oh, hey, that's pretty cool. There's Bull Bronson. So it did lead to me at least popping for Bull, who I hadn't seen in several years up to that point.
right? And I think the plans for Bull that night was completely different too. But I mean, it's all working out for him now.
Pretty pretty good. It helped me reconnect with Bull and get him on the show.
Yeah, man,
Um,
I've been trying to get Bull to come back and work forever, and I think with the help of like me, Zach, Dalton, Mikey, everyone messaging him, he was like, "Fuck it, yeah, I'm down." So
um,
I'm hoping he actually starts picking up and working a lot other places around and get back in shape.
no doubt. So you feel like do you have any like memories of certain parts of the match? Just any details that really stood out from your tag match that you'd like to just share with everybody.
Um, some of the things that stand out. Oh, the fork sticking out of Ty's head. That was insane. Let me see. The Boston Crab Dalton puts me in, and the thumbtacks. I did that. It was cool.
I did almost whenever at the very end of the match when Dalton hit the ref with the tack bat. One of the tacks did like
Right?
just kind of fly all the way and land right at my feet, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad that like landed short of me and didn't like get in my eye or anything like that. But it was all
Yeah,
good.
that was a brutal freaking whack too.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, I mean everything. I feel like the end of it, probably should have caused more chaos
right.
before Dalton grabbed the mic because that just looks a little awkward to me. But other than that, I like it.
Um, we where do you see Fight Underground progressing as we enter a new year and hopefully, knock on wood, a year with some less restrictions?
I think that here within the year, man, we're going to see Fight Underground become one of the heavy hitting promotions around here. I think it's going to be up there with ICW, No Holds Barred, and GCW.
Uh, Same question, but with Stride. Where do you see Stride going?
Stride, man, with the whole we've struggled through this whole pandemic with Stride. Um, they're trying to do everything they can to keep shows going. Uh, I'm hoping, I'm hoping Stride is the next carbon copy of IWA Unlimited. So
Awesome.
I'm hoping to see tons of new faces all starting up from Stride.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate all the stories. I appreciate everything that you've said and shared with us. I have quite a few names here now for word association. If you got time to do those real quick.
Yes, sir. Let's get him.
All right. First name Christian Rose.
Christian Rose is a piece of shit. No, I'm just kidding. Christian Rose is awesome. He is okay. Whenever we started training there in NCW, the guy that was training us, and I don't know how I skipped over this. The guy that was training us, Ice Cold Outlaw, 3 months into my training, he actually got paralyzed in a match.
I think I actually. I apologize for cutting you off. I remember Livewire McGuire actually telling me about that
Yeah.
because they did like a
So
benefit show. Like this was a long time ago, but like I'd never seen the guy, but he's like, yeah, this guy got paralyzed in the ring. So I'm actually, you're kind of jogging my memory for something like that. But go on. I'm sorry.
probably good. Yeah. So Gary, Ice Cold Outlaw, he gets paralyzed 3 months into me training. Now Rose had been there, I think, maybe a month longer than me, or a couple months longer than me. And there was a referee from IWA Mid South that would come up named Ollie Tharp. And really, Christian Rose and Ollie Tharp kind of took over the training school after Gary got paralyzed. So I really got like, besides going to seminars and stuff like that, Christian Rose was one of the first people that helped me get a grasp on what wrestling is and the psychology of it.
Awesome. Next name is Matt Cage.
Matt Cage, he's awesome. Um, I think I met him before I worked down in IWAU, probably in Metropolis at CPW or RPW. But yeah, Matt Cage, man, like we've had some banger ass matches, and he really the whole reason they put any belts on me or anything in IWAU was all Matt Cage. Matt Cage, he had just seen something in me and pushed me. If it wasn't for Matt Cage, I would have never been anything in IWAU.
Ian Rotten.
Like I said there in the beginning, man, I thought that yeah, this place is a joke, and yeah, let me pay this much money to be on your show. But after that phone call from the Tomasellis and Tracy, like I have been in good with them and welcome back every time I work. And Ian has always paid me every time. I think he messaged me to be on So You Want to Be a Deathmatch Star in 2019. So like I didn't even put in any work on that at all. He just instantly hit me up. So I have much respect for Ian Rutten.
Awesome. Mickey Knuckles.
Mickey Knuckles is another one that I've known since. the early 2000s. Like I said, they're in that tryout show. Jimmy gave me most of the feedback on what I needed to change, but Mickey was there as well, um, giving me feedback on what I needed to do, and I'll forever be grateful for that.
Ty Blade.
Ty Blade, I really just started working with Ty. Like I had known him back in the day um, from CPW and RPW. I don't think we ever really got to work back then. I would see him on like the Seven Deadly Sins CPW shows that I worked. I met him there a couple times, and then here recently is when we just started working with one another. And actually, for Undisclosed 2 that we just did, it's me and Ty Blade for the CCW title. We have a match, and I think that drops in a couple weeks. But
Awesome.
it is probably one of the most hard hitting matches I have had in 5 years.
Okay, definitely gotta check that one out. Um, Mikey McFinnigan.
Mikey's another dude that I've known since damn near the start. Mikey's just always been top notch, funny guy. Um, I traveled a lot with Mikey. I consider him a good friend.
Madman Pondo.
Madman Pondo. Um, I don't even know where to start with this guy. I met Pondo probably, it's been almost 8 years now, and uh, Pondo is the living the living embodiment of what the American dream is. Uh, he started when he was younger. He knew exactly what he wanted to do, what he wanted to be, and how he wanted to change the game. And he's done that, man. Like he is one of the biggest um, death match, just even in this area, man. One of the biggest influences that you could look up to getting into this business and show you how to be a self-made pro wrestler.
Awesome. Uh, got our last few here. The Hooligans.
Hooligans got nothing but love for them boys. They have always, since day one, treated me with respect, and they never had to, but they always did. They have took me under their wing to West Virginia, to Florida, all over the place. The Hooligans, I definitely consider brothers.
Awesome. Last three. Heath Hatton.
Keith Hatton. So up until like I think it was like last year, I had always thought that Heath Hatton didn't like me at all. Um, which that's always something that never made me want to hate another person or not like them. I could care less if you don't like me. We'll go our separate ways or whatever. But with Heath, man, yeah, I had just because I always had like a bad reputation. Being a hardcore wrestler was never looked good upon up until this last past couple years. Um, so like I always figured Heath was just one of those guys that seen me as the dude wearing street clothes in the ring wrestling. So once I found out that like we start working with each other regularly, yeah, I mean he's got all the respect in the world for me, and like I said, I've always had respect for Heath. Heath is straight up the real life Danny Tanner. I mean, uh, he's the perfect American dad. Like, and that's awesome because you don't see that. Like Heath is legit 100% true American wholesome dad. Like you don't see you don't see parents doing TikTok videos with their kids like you do him. Like I mean, he is a big part of his kids' lives, and that will show in the future for sure.
Um, I know I said last three, but I do want to. Didn't have this one on my list, but I do want to ask about Bull Bronson. I gotta ask that one before we get to the final two.
Bull's another guy I consider a brother, man. Since day one, me and Bull have always got along. Back when he was in the convoy in NCW, NWC, that's when I first met him. So around 2006, um, I mean, we would bond over music, we'd bond over wrestling, we'd bond over smoking. Uh, we partake in in
Good.
numerous numerous forms of smoking THC, but yeah, dude, Bull's another one that is a brother to me.
Uh, okay, now it's finally the last two. Zach Sawyer.
Zach is another one, man. He's he's like a brother. You know, we for years, even when he took his big long break, we'd still talk to each other every now and then. Uh, Zach is a person I consider a friend in and out of wrestling.
And finally, Dalton Diamond.
That scumbag piece of shit.
We should just end the interview now after that one.
Yeah, all kayfabe aside, Dalton is a brother to me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I really appreciate you doing this. This was one I was really excited about doing. Glad I finally found the right app to reach out to you on. But I really appreciate you taking the time to do this today. Would you like to plug any social media for the folks out there that are listening?
I just got my pro wrestling tee store started, so go out there and grab you a cash raised on dope money shirt. I actually have a new design that's getting approved as we speak, so that should either be out either tonight or tomorrow. So
Awesome.
just head over to Pro Wrestling Tees, type in Cash Warden, and you can use the promo code New Year to save 20% off.
Awesome, and hopefully by the time by the time this drops, that promo code, the shirt will be out, and hopefully the promo code's still good. So I just want to
Hopefully, yeah, hopefully that's still there.
I want to say that for the record. Don't get mad at one of us if the promo code don't work when this drops. But anything else?
No, we got Anna Fight Underground coming up February 16th, and that will
Um,
be at Quick Skating Rink.
okay, definitely check that out.
So that show is still on, and it will be happening. We will have Necro Butcher there for a meet and greet.
Awesome, and you got for the fans, you have any Twitter or Instagram for fans to follow you on?
Twitter, Instagram, just I don't know what they are at the moment. I believe it's just Cash Warden.
Okay, okay, that works. I'll post a link because I follow you on.
Yeah,
But
I'm not technology savvy at all. Hence the reason why my pro wrestling team just got started in 2021.
well, I appreciate you taking the time to do the show. You know, really great to find out. You know how you got started in your whole journey here in professional wrestling, and just once again, thanks so much.
Yep, no problem, man. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. And if you'd like to follow me on my social media pages, that's facebook.com/athleticgeek9, Twitter athletic_geek9, Instagram athleticgeek9. And if you'd like to help improve this channel financially, I am on Patreon, patreon.com/athleticgeek9. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share, subscribe for more content, not just from the world of pro wrestling, but from the world of gaming, anime, comic books, and all things geek culture. Thanks to Cash Borden once again. See you guys next time.